Okay, just going to give you a bit of a tour of the whole system. Obviously the source of a stereo system is power, and so in the engine bay I've fitted a yellow top Ultima battery. These are well known for their ability to be both deep cycle discharged and for their reliability in terms of current flow and that sort of thing. I've fitted a Brockford Fosgate battery terminal, mostly because this makes it really easy to actually wire in the positive red wire which goes to the stereo, as well as the black factory wires which the rest of the car needs to operate. Most important thing with any car stereo power installation is to make sure you've got a fuse absolutely as close to the battery as you can possibly get it. This is about as close as I can get it. It's literally sitting on top of the battery. The problem is if you put it further back in the corner near the strut top there, it's possible the wire might start rubbing and short out on the body somewhere along the way, and then you'll find that you're going to actually cause a problem, melt the bodywork or something along those lines. So having it right close to the battery, that's really helpful. I do plan to clean some of this up, especially I'm going to separate out the device power from the actual audio power. But you can see the red cable comes in from the engine bay. It actually runs up inside the cabin underneath the seats and into the boot. That comes into a distribution block because we've got two amplifiers to power. We've got the JBL front speaker amplifier and the Eclipse amplifier for the subwoofers. And so we just use a simple power distribution block to split that into two runs and into the 2 amps. Now right now you can see a little bit of dodgy wiring here where we've actually piggybacked on the amplifier to run the line driver and a few other things that need power in the boot. So we'll obviously clean that up and get a better run made in when I clean up the system and sort of organise the boot better. So now that we've got power in, we'll start to look back at where the source comes for audio from the iPad. There's a couple of options in terms of audio output from the iPad. One option that a couple of people have taken, which both my housemate and also if you've seen the Soundman iPad install videos, the option that they took is that you can do optical out. Now there's not a direct optical out on the iPad, but if you get the camera connection kit which plugs into the dock connector, that actually gives you a simple USB port. Now usually you plug a camera into this, but what people have found is the iPad actually supports quite a number of USB devices, including keyboards as well as some USB audio devices. So you can simply get a USB to optical out connector, plug that into the USB, and you now have optical out direct from the iPad rather than using the analog output. I've decided to go for the analog output. This is cheaper, and there's another problem which I'll cover later. If you do use the USB output for audio, you can't actually charge the iPad at a decent enough rate to be useful, which is a limitation of the iPad hardware design. So let's just take a look at how I've done my output. The route I've taken, I'm simply using the iPad headphone out. I simply have a 3.5mm stereo cable, simply plugs into the iPad headphone out. Another option that we could use is to use an iPad dock. The iPad dock looks like this. Now I've actually disassembled one of these previously, and it will give you quite a nice little ribbon cable to simply plug into the iPad, give you the other end with which to plug in a charger, and also you can see the line out connector. Now the problem with the line out connector is that this actually no longer lets you change the volume on the iPad itself. It actually locks the iPad to its maximum volume, which would no longer give me volume control of the system. Potentially we could fix this by adding some kind of volume control further up in the system, either an amplifier with volume control or a line driver that has volume control. But since I don't have one of those available, I'm going to stick to using the headphone out. Now I did use an oscilloscope connected to the iPad, and I found that the output signal on line out and headphone out is the exact same voltage, about 0.9 volts max, and the signal doesn't seem any better or worse. So I'm not really gaining anything or losing anything by using the headphone output. The only thing that would be convenient if I was using this dock pulled apart is that I could plug in a simple dock connector cable to get both audio out and power to the iPad, whereas right now I have to plug two cables in, one for the charger, one for the headphone out. So that's something maybe I could work on for a future version. You can't actually see it, but underneath the dash, that cable that it was black that I showed you turns into this nice blue set of RCA connectors, and this comes into the PLD line driver. The PLD line driver then has an adjustable gain, so we're turning the 1 volt from the iPad into the 4 volts that are necessary, and that outputs via this red and white cable here. Then input then comes across and plugs into the JBL audio amplifier just here, and then that has a pre-out with this set of blue RCAs which then runs in to provide signal to the subwoofer amplifier. The last step is that we need a remote wire in order to turn the amplifiers on. Because the red and white power is coming in as permanent power, because it's straight from the battery, it's not switched with the key. We need to make sure the amps aren't drawing power when the car is off, otherwise we'll have to get someone to come out and give us a jump start. So what we did is we found an unused plug in the cabin which had accessories power, so it turns on when the car is on, and we've run that up with the RCAs that has a built-in remote wire in the centre, and that is then plugged into the remote of all three devices, both amplifiers and the line driver. Thought you might like to know the specifications of the system. You can't see them, but hidden in within the door panel, I'm using some Alpine Type-R split systems. So there's a 6-inch mid-bass speaker at the bottom, and then a small tweeter which is up in this speaker pod. Now in my car this speaker pod was factory. In some cars you would need to make an adjustment, but this is a limited edition VR-X Magna which came with a fancy 10 speaker system, which while it sounds fancy, the audio wasn't too bad for a stock system, but it certainly has nothing on the upgraded system that I put in. But they did conveniently give us these nice speaker pods within to put the tweeters. Got two subwoofers in the back here. These are Eclipse subwoofers. They're good for 300 watts each, and they're in a custom made box which fits nicely in the back of my boot. The subwoofer amplifier at the back is an Eclipse DA7122 amplifier. It's a 1000 watt monoblock, which means basically it's capable of 1000 watts output power into 4 ohms, and it's also capable of only a single channel, so you couldn't actually use this for front speakers. It's designed specifically to power a subwoofer. The second amplifier in the system is this JBL. It's a GTO 1004. It's a 4-channel amplifier at 100 watts per channel. Currently only using 2 channels for the front speakers, so it's outputting roughly 100 watts. And I've found that when the amplifiers turn right up, it's approaching the limit to the speakers. In fact, I can make it start to distort if I get everything right up the top. So this amplifier is pretty well matched to the front speakers, and the volume of the system is pretty acceptable. Well, there you have it. That's a tour of the iPad system I put into my car. I hope to give an update when I actually fabricate the boot and make everything look a little nicer than amplifiers screwed into a piece of wood. So I hope that inspires everyone else to put iPads in their own cars, because honestly it's a great application.